We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos, to offer the day's prayer.
Let us pray. Lord, you have made us different and have given each of us different personalities and different strengths. Help us to appreciate the differences and learn from people in our life. After all, our goal is not to fix people, our goal is to love people. Thank you, Lord, for placing so many different people in our life so that we may see them the way you see them. Amen.
We ask our guests and visitors to continue to stand and join us for the flag salute. We ask Assembly Member Aramula to lead us in the pledge. Mr. Aramula. You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, May 20th, 2010. The Assembly met at 7 a.m. Honorable Steve Knight, Assembly Member, 36th District Presiding Chief Clerk A. Dawson Wilson at the desk.
Mr. Calderon moves and Mr. Hagman seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the Governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. The absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members, I request unanimous consent for Assembly Members Chesbro, Ma, and Skinner, as well as Block, to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection.
Also request unanimous consent to allow Assembly Member Huber to have a guest at her desk and a photographer on the floor.
Without objection.
And request unanimous consent to allow Assembly Member Garrick to speak on Adjourn in Memory today.
Without objection.
On committee referrals, pursuant to Rule 96, I request unanimous consent to refer SB 1481 from the Governmental Organization Committee to the Business and Professions Committee.
Without objection.
Also, I request unanimous consent to withdraw from committee per Assembly Rule 96, AB 1901 Ruskin and AB 2158 Hagman from the Appropriations Committee and order the bill to second reading as they are no longer fiscal.
Without objection. We are going to move to a few guest introductions. We would like to welcome visitors from Calpine Corporation. It's the company's 50th anniversary for the operation of its geothermal facility. They will be receiving a resolution in the Willie Brown Jr. room to celebrate their momentous occasion. With us here is Thad Miller, Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer, Dave Jackson, Larry Sessions, Charlotte Doherty, Kevin Peterson, Dan Cole, and Danielle Mathers-Separis. Welcome to our chambers and congratulations. And on behalf of Ms. Huber, we would like to recognize her daughter, Cece Huber. She will be joining Ms. Huber at her desk for a session. Cece is graduating from UC Berkeley on Sunday, May 23rd. Okay, members, we are ready to go to business on the daily file. We will start at third reading. File items 13 through 18 pass and retain. File item 19, AJR 25. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 25 by Assembly Member Furutani relative to Filipino World War II veterans.
Mr. Furutani.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. AJR 25 urges Congress to pass and the President to sign the Filipino Veterans Reunification Act, Senate Bill 1337, House Bill 2412, which would exempt children of Filipino World War II veterans from the numerical limitations of immigrant visas, thus allowing for family reunification. At the end of World War II, provisions included in the Nationality Act of 1940 authorized the naturalization of all aliens serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. Filipino soldiers serving in the U.S. Armed Forces outside the Philippines were naturalized. However, the naturalization for Filipinos who had served the U.S. in the Philippines was halted. Most Filipino World War II veterans are in their 80s and 90s. These veterans continue to wait for their children to join them in their golden years. AJR 25 passed out of Assembly Judiciary Committee. Wow, tried to read over it, but it kept getting louder and louder. Most Filipino American World War II veterans are in their 80s and 90s. These veterans continue to wait for their children to join them in their golden years. AJR 25 passed out of the Assembly Judiciary Committee with unanimous support and enjoys the support of the American Legion, Department of California, Vietnam Veterans of America, and the California State Council. As we approach Memorial Day to honor these U.S. men and women, I would like people to keep this particular bill in mind. I urge and I vote. Thank you.
Ms. Salas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I stand in strong support of this. I have a huge population of Filipino veterans in my district, but for the resistance of the Filipino people during World War II, the course of the war might have been very, very different. Many of our Filipino veterans served in the armed forces and were promised benefits, and then after the war, those benefits were taken away from them. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that Congress rectified that mistake, but by that time, many of our Filipino veterans had already died, and so justice was not given to them or their families. It's only right and proper that we support this resolution and make sure that their sacrifices to our country, that the children of those veterans enjoy the benefits of their fathers and how they fought for our country. Thank you.
Colonel Cook.
Thank you very much. In the past, I've talked about this issue. In fact, we ran a couple of bills, one of which was vetoed by the governor. Another one, the last one we ran with joint authors, is still held up in Senate Rules Committee. And I'm in strong support of the Assemblyman's resolution. This is an issue that is very, very close to my heart. Because if you look at the history, of the Philippine people and the veterans that fought in World War II, you have to realize the tremendous price and toll that they paid as part of America. You know, I often, when I was teaching, I used to criticize Douglas MacArthur. I thought he made a number of military and strategic blunders. But the one thing he was committed to was never forgetting the role that those Filipino soldiers did for America. And it's almost like after the war, we kind of turned our back on those particular individuals. And in the history books, we have done the same thing. We have turned our back. It's almost as if there's a new era of revisionist history, and what those people did has been lost. So obviously, I commend my colleague for what he's doing, strongly support this. And this is something that I think is a first step, maybe that we can rewrite or at least put the proper place in history that these people so rightly deserve. Ask for your aye vote.
Mr. De Leon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also, too, rise and support Assembly Joint Resolution number 25 by Mr. Furutani. I represent historic Filipino town in Los Angeles. I'm proud to represent this area, and I can say with much certainty that during this economic crisis, I can see hundreds of Filipino veterans, those who survived the Bataan Death March during World War II in the Pacific Rim versus the Japanese. I can see them with their military hats actually standing in the bread line in historic Filipino town in Los Angeles, waiting to buy, or I should not say buy, but actually willing to pick up food because of the tough economic circumstances that they're enduring right now. It was just recently that the U.S. Congress just recognized these individuals for U.S. citizenship and recognized the contributions that they have made historically, giving their lives. Over 250,000 of these individuals whose lives were given to this great heroic war during World War II. I do believe it's time that we recognize that these individuals should be able to unite their families, especially given the fact that the vast majority of these veterans of World War II are in their 90s and 80s now, and their adult grown children, or many of them, are still back in the Philippines. So that's why I rise in support of my good friend, Mr. Warren Furutani, to unite these families back together again and to give a special recognition to these great Filipino Americans who put their lives on the line. Madam Speaker, I support AJ 25.
Mr. Furutani, would you like to close?
Thank you. Just very briefly, members, one of the great things we can do in this position, in this fantastic House and where we serve, is we can use it as an opportunity to correct past wrongs. This is what this bill does. I ask the first vote to be for co-sponsors, Madam Chair.
Mr. Furutani is asking for the first roll to be open for co-authors. The clerk will open the roll. This is for co-authors, members. Co-authors. Clerk will note that there are 51 co-authors. We need to take a roll call on this item. All members, seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 51, no 0. Measure passes. We'd like to return to guest introductions. We would like to welcome Mr. Steve Weber, President of San Diego State University, in recognition of their work on an ecological reserve, the Santa Margarita Ecological Reserve, and with him is former Assemblymember Jeff Marston. They're in the back of the chamber. File item 20 and 21, pass and retain. File item 22, pass temporarily. File items 23, 24, 25, pass and retain. File item 26, AB 2120, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2120 by Assemblymember Silva, an act relating to mobile homes.
Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Each year, mobile home park managers are required to print and deliver copies of mobile home park residency laws to each rented space in their park. This requirement is unnecessary to serve the park residents. It is deemed very costly to park owners, resulting in literally millions of pages of material being printed and mailed. Opt-in. This bill will allow residents to opt in to receiving annual copies of the law by requiring park managers to either distribute copies by February 1st or notify residents that they may request a copy from the management. This bill has received a bipartisan support. Recent amendments have satisfied the opposition. Ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 53, no 0. Measure passes. File items 27 through 32, pass and retain. File item 33, AB 1895, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1895 by Assemblymember Ruskin, an act relating to post-secondary education.
Mr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill provides gender-neutral code cleanup to the Education Code. It's also one of two vehicles for recommendations produced by the Joint Committee on the Master Plan of Higher Education. And in that regard, I'd like to thank the members of the committee for their work thus far, as well as my co-chair, Senator Negrete McLeod, and the lead Republican Assembly Member Jim Nielsen. Thank you all for your commitment to the committee's work. I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Nielsen.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, I would also urge an aye vote. Chairman Ruskin and co-chair Negrete McLeod have had a very deliberative process with many, many hearings. There is nothing difficult to handle in this particular bill. It is a work in process wherein we make our final conclusions and put out a committee report. It will be included in the bill. This is one in work in progress that I think is worthy and causes us no harm. It's keeping faith with the process that Assemblyman Ruskin has articulated as chairman. It's a good bill.
Mr. Block.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a member of the Master Plan Committee and chair of the Higher Ed Committee, I want to commend Assemblymember Ruskin and Senator Negrete McLeod on the work they've done. This bill presents a very balanced look at the various arguments heard in the Master Plan Committee, and I urge support of this today. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. Measure passes. File item 34, pass and retain. File item 35, AB 2389 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2389 with amendments by Assemblymember Gaines.
Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 2389, these are amendments that are the result of negotiations between the CMA and the sponsor Aetna to remove CMA's opposition to this bill. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, and without objection, we will take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted out to print and back on file. File items 36 through 53, pass and retain. File item 54, AJR 38. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 38 by Assemblymember Caballero relative to public resources.
Ms. Caballero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm pleased to present AJR 38 today. Members, this is a bipartisan resolution which urges the Department of the Interior to expeditiously complete its studies in consideration of the Two Gates Fish Protection Project. If you'll remember, last year, this legislative body spent a great deal of time to provide the necessary funding to help this project move forward. We successfully allocated $28 million from Proposition 84 and SB 7X1. The Two Gates pilot project would serve as a barrier to prevent fish, especially the endangered Delta smelt, from becoming entrained in the pumps. This is a very, very important project because, as you know, water delivery to the west side of the Central Valley has been curtailed over the years, and this could provide an opportunity for us to get water flowing once again and would have a tremendous impact on our economy. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this resolution.
Mr. Romula.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to thank Ms. Caballero as well as the chair of the Water, Parks, and Wildlife Committee for working on this bill. I think the language here is acceptable to all. It's fair, and I urge an aye vote on this issue.
Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I too rise in support of AJR 38. Commend the author. Anything that we can do to expedite getting water to that west side over there to put people back to work, get our economy stimulated, I support. So I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Ms. Fuller.
I join in asking for support for this bill. It's a very important bill, and we need to pursue it. I thank the author for working so hard to get it to this place. Thank you.
Mr. Mr. Bill Berryhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I, too, rise in support of this. We can argue over the long-term water supply and infrastructure for a long time, but in the meantime, we need to do something to get water flowing sooner cheaper, and faster so that we can get water down to the farmers down south. So I urge a aye vote on this.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to rise in support of this as well, and especially to thank the author for working through some difficult and contentious issues and getting some wording that is accurate and acceptable broadly to the many stakeholders on this issue. I do want to assure folks, though, that there is nothing in this pilot project and in concluding the process of evaluating its viability that will necessarily affect water flows. This is a study. We're not sure that the Two Gates project will prove to be viable. What this resolution simply does is call for that study to be accelerated and completed, and we'll find out. Maybe it will provide the benefits that many hope it will, but I think it's in everyone's interest to hasten the conclusion of that study so that we can know for sure. So, thank you.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, since 6 other members have risen to speak on a bill which is support, I thought I would delay the floor process a little bit more and stand up and speak on the bill. I think water is a wonderful thing, and I think we should do everything to provide good quality water to everyone. I support the bill.
Ms. Caballero, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I respectfully ask for the aye vote, and if we could have the first roll call for co-authors, please.
Ms. Caballero is asking for the first roll call to be open for co-authors. The clerk will open the roll. This is for co-authors, members. This is for co-authors. Clerk will note that there are 50 co-authors. This is an AJR, so we do need a roll call vote on this, members. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 2. Measure passes. File item 55, AB 2490. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2490 by Assemblymember Jones, an act relating to workers' compensation insurance.
Mr. Jones.
Madam Speaker, members, Assembly Bill 2490 helps California employers and businesses by making sure that they enter knowingly into any agreements that might require disputes that they might have with insurers to be resolved in other states. This applies to workers' compensation policies which have far too routinely included arbitration or dispute resolution clauses that require California businesses to resolve those disputes in other states. We continue to work closely with the insurance industry on amendments. We took amendments earlier this month to resolve concerns addressed by the Association of California Insurance Companies. They've communicated that we're continuing to work with them and that they're not opposed to the bill moving forward. I'll continue to work with the opposition to fine-tune amendments as the bill moves forward. It does help, however, California business and employers reduce costs by making sure that if they want to, their disputes can be resolved here as opposed to places like Delaware, or New York, or Florida. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Mr. Jones moves the call. File item 56, AB 2747. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2747 by Assemblymember Bonnie Lowenthal, an act relating to prisoners.
Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 2747 will save about $40 million a year in our strained prison system. 3 years ago, prison pharmacy services were in chaos and rife with waste. The federal receiver has created a far more efficient, accountable, and cost-effective system. To keep saving $40 million a year, we need to codify that framework. This will help us get out of receivership. The bill is sponsored by the receiver as part of the Prison Health Care Turnaround Plan. There is no opposition and support on both sides. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 59, no 0. Measure passes. File item 57, pass and retain. File item 58, AB 1749. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1749 by Assemblymember Bonnie Lowenthal, an act relating to whistleblower protection.
Ms. Lowenthal.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker and members. The vast majority of state workers enjoy protection against on-the-job retaliation should they report wrongdoing. If they report waste or abuse, they're shielded by California's Whistleblower Protection Act. The judicial branch's 22,000 employees, however, have no such protection. AB 1749 will fix that. My joint author, Audra Strickland, and I believe the Whistleblower Act is the best way to protect these workers and to safeguard the public resources they oversee. This bipartisan bill has received no votes. It has the support of labor organizations, the Center for Judicial Excellence, and the Judicial Council. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 63, no 0. Measure passes. File items 59 through 62 pass and retain. File item 63, AB 2086. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2086 by Assemblymember Cotto, an act relating to post-secondary education.
Mr. Cotto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Members, this bill will make more transparent to students, parents, and policymakers the effectiveness of post-secondary professional preparation programs. The bill requires that post-secondary institutions that participate in the Cal Grant program to annually provide information on where and how to access the license examination passage rates of those institutions. The intent, members, is that this bill will help applicants make better informed decisions regarding the benefits of applying to the various schools and programs that will provide policymakers with useful information. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Norby.
I rise in support of the bill, Madam Speaker. AB 2086 provides quantitative, objective information to consumers about the effectiveness and the likelihood of success of taking various courses and programs at our public universities. It's a good bill. I support it.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 64, no 0. Measure passes. File item 64, pass and retain. File item 65, AB 2238. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2238 by Assemblymember Cotto, an act relating to earthquakes.
Mr. Cotto.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, this bill places the duties and responsibilities of the California Earthquake Prediction Advisory Council back into state law as an advisory council within the California Emergency Management Agency. This bill requires the California Earthquake Protection Advisory Council to review earthquake and volcanic predictions and forecasts and advise the governor, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Norby, is your mic up or no? Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, no 16. Measure passes. File item 66, pass and retain. File item 67, AB 2340. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2340 by Assemblymember Monning, an act relating to employee rights.
Mr. Monning.
Madam Speaker, I wish to pass and retain on this.
This item will be passed and retained. File item 68, AB 2510. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2510 by Assemblymember Fletcher, an act relating to public employees' retirement.
Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We are all aware of the tremendous burden of pensions and health care obligations and its impact on our budget. Nowhere is this truer than in the city of San Diego. AB 2510 is a piece of legislation that seeks to rein in pension-related health care costs for San Diego's police officers. Current law allows a local agency to provide health care to its active employees and its retired annuitants through the state's PERS system, known as PEMCA, if the local agency meets certain conditions. This legislation will allow the City of San Diego to participate in PEMCA. Allowing the city and its employees to participate will save money because the larger state pool spreads the risk and lowers cost. The San Diego system is geographically limited, so retirees located elsewhere in the state or country must find more expensive coverage than they would be able to in the state's broader nationwide system. And the administrative cost to run the city system average 3 to 5% of premiums, which would be dramatically reduced if the city participated in the CalPERS system, which has overhead costs of about 0.5 percentage point of premiums. The City of San Diego and the San Diego Police Officers Association recently agreed through collective bargaining to participate in PEMCA if this change in law can be made. I want to thank the San Diego Police Officers Association for finding and agreeing to reforms that can help address out-year costs and reduce retiree health care expenses. This change will save the City of San Diego millions of dollars. It's a common-sense measure designed to save the taxpayers money and reduce future pension and health care obligations. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 63, no 0. Measure passes. File item 69, AB 2656. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2656 by Assemblymember De Leon, an act relating to public post-secondary education.
Mr. De Leon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to thank Chairman of Higher Education, Mr. Marty Block, for his collaboration and cooperation with this measure. AB 25, or I should say AB 2656, is a measure that would require faculty members or staff of a public or private post-secondary educational institution to be subject to internal policies to ensure that state-funded research meets minimum academic standards as defined by the university or its faculty senate. Faculty members or staff would be required to certify that to the contracting state agency that their research complies with the academic standards and protocols adopted by their university or faculty senate. This is taxpayer dollars. We want to make sure it's being utilized properly and meets academic muster. This bill does not undermine academic freedom. The bill simply requires that state-funded research meet minimum academic standards requirements established by the post-secondary institution. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 22. Measure passes. File item 70, pass and retain. File item 71, AB 2637. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2637 with amendments by Assemblymember Chesbro.
Mr. Chesbro.
Madam Speaker, these are the amendments to AB 2637, which will allow the Humboldt Bar pilots to take the Board of Pilot Commission test without the same level of experience, since the test is not available in Humboldt Bay due to the lower level of ship traffic. We worked with the stakeholders to craft these amendments, and we'll continue to work with them to ensure actions are not harmful to any groups. I would ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions, Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We do oppose these amendments and respectfully ask for a roll call vote.
Okay, Mr. Hagman is asking for a roll call vote on the amendments. Mr. Chesbro asks for an aye vote. Mr. Hagman requests a no vote. Clerk will open the roll. Mr. Chesbro is seeking an aye vote. Mr. Hagman is seeking a no vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 18. The amendments are adopted, out to print, and back on file. File item 72, pass and retain. File item 73, AB 2685. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2685 by Assemblymember De La Torre, an act relating to teacher credentialing.
Mr. De La Torre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 2685 updates the Commission on teacher credentialing's ability to notify schools through the All Points Bulletin system. Specifically, the bill allows the CTC to make the APB available in an electronic format. The APB notifies schools when teachers have had their credential revoked or suspended for misconduct, including convictions for a sex offense. Currently, the APB is distributed to schools after each commission meeting. Often it takes weeks for schools to access the information after a meeting. AB 2685 allows for the CTC's anticipated move to a cumulative database that will be updated in real time. It has not received any no votes and places no additional general fund obligations. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, no 0. Measure passes. File items 74 and 75 pass and retain. File item 76, AB 2733. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2733 by Assemblymember Ruskin, an act relating to cigarette and tobacco products.
Mr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Board of Equalization has the ability to suspend or revoke licenses for the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products. Many people who have their licenses suspended or revoked flout the law now. This bill does some very specific and simple things. It simply says if your license is suspended or revoked, you have to remove items, cigarette items and tobacco items for sale from display, that they can no longer be visible in display. It says that you have to post the notice of revocation or suspension, and it says that you cannot use these items as a gift in order to gain leverage for some value. It also imposes a $1,000 fine upon a violation of these items. This bill has received no votes in either the GO committee or judiciary. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 56, no 0. Measure passes. File item 77, pass and retain. File item 78, AB 1715. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1715 by Assemblymember Fuentes, an act relating to state claims and making an appropriation therefore and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill is one of two annual bills sponsored by the California Victim Compensation and Government Claims Board. It appropriates $998,377 to pay 257 claims against the state as approved by the board and the Department of Finance. The government code requires the board to take all necessary steps to ensure that all approved claims for which there exists no legally available appropriation are submitted for legislative approval for at least twice each calendar year. Virtually all of the claims are in two categories: state-dated warrants and unredeemed bonds. This bill, sponsored by the administration, passed the Appropriations Committee unanimously and has no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 59, no 0 on the measure. Ayes 59, no 0 on the urgency. Measure passes. We will go back to file item 77, AB 1690. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1690 by Assemblymember Chesbro and others, relative an act relating to disaster relief, making an appropriation therefore and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 1690 would allow individuals who have suffered a disaster loss in the January Humboldt County earthquake, which exceeds the amount that can be deducted in the current year's tax return, to carry forward those losses into future years. The bill also provides that a homeowner cannot be denied a homeowner's exemption solely because that dwelling was temporarily damaged or destroyed and was being reconstructed by the owner or was temporarily uninhabited as a result of the earthquake. Lastly, it allows Humboldt County to be reimbursed for decreased property tax revenue as a result of lower property values. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 60, no 0 on the measure. Ayes 60, no 0 on the urgency. Measure passes. File item 79. File item 79, AB 1766. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1766 by Assemblymember Gaines, an act relating to disaster assistance, making appropriation therefore and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Gaines. We will pass temporarily. I'd like to go back to announcements. Ms. Kelly Bowers, Superintendent of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District in Livermore, is here. And Susan Solomon, School Board Member from the William S. Hart Union High School District, located in the city of Santa Clarita. These are guests of Mr. Torlakson in the back of the chambers. Welcome to our chambers. Okay, we are going to go to file item 79, AB 1766. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1766 by Assemblymember Gaines, an act relating to disaster assistance, making appropriation therefore and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I appreciate your patience. I'm presenting AB 1766. In August of 2009, the 49 fire destroyed more than 60 homes and businesses in Auburn, and the governor declared a state of emergency for Placer County due to the fire. AB 1766 will provide the lost property tax revenue resulting from reassessments of the fire losses. This is an important measure to Placer County, and I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 59-0 on the urgency. Ayes 59, no 0 on the measure. The measure passes. File item 80, AB 1778. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1778 by Assemblymember Liu, an act relating to state promotions.
Mr. Liu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill helps keep tax dollars and jobs in California by ensuring that all commercials made on behalf of the state of California and paid for wholly or in part with state funds are actually filmed in California. The bill stems from a recent advertising campaign promoting California's dairy industry. Portions of the Happy Cow ad campaign were actually filmed in New Zealand. This bill simply requires that these commercials be filmed in California, and it makes sense because when taxpayers finance a filming of a commercial that promotes California or its products, the money should be spent in California, employing California workers to support our economy and provide jobs. The bill is no opposition. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 13. The measure passes. File items 81 and 82 pass and retain. File item 83, AB 2012. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2012 by Assemblymember Liu, an act relating to cruelty to animals.
Mr. Liu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is a bill that deals with the terrible crime of animal neglect. AB 2012 will increase a penalty for animal neglect up to 1 year of incarceration. This will allow the penalty for animal neglect to be consistent to that of the penalty for animal abuse. Because animal neglect is oftentimes more harmful to animal than animal abuse, this bill will repair the discrepancy in the current law by making both penalties consistent. The bill is sponsored by the ASPCA and supported by the Humane Society, and there is no opposition. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Mr. Norby.
Madam Speaker, I rise in opposition to 2012. Our justice system is based on proportionality of the punishment to the crime. And while neglect is a crime, it's not the same as cruelty. And to double a criminal penalty, there must be some rationale behind this. Theoretically, this will lead to more overcrowding in jails, for which the county has no money. And before I can support it, I'd like to see a rationale as to where the connection between doubling this penalty is and the crime itself. Until then, I oppose it.
Mr. Liu, would you like to close on the measure?
Thank you. In close, of the 1,400 cases of animal cruelty, nearly 41% are actually animal neglect. Oftentimes, these cases can be worse, and it is in the discretion of the prosecutor as to how they want to charge it and what they're trying to seek. So this doesn't actually mandate that they get up to a year. It simply says a prosecutor now has that discretion for some of the worst cases. Respect request and I vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 49, noes 9. Measure passes. File item 84, AB 2018. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2018 by Assemblymember Skinner, an act relating to public social services.
Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, in this time of foreclosures and unemployment, many families find themselves unexpectedly having to move. AB 2018 will save California families who are under our food stamp program the process of having to entirely reapply when they move to a new county in order to continue their food stamp benefits. And allowing an inter-county transfer process for food stamp recipients aligns our state's food stamp program with the same process that's currently followed for CalWORKS and Medi-Cal. California's lack of inter-county transfer requirement imposes burdens on low-income families and causes many eligible Californians to lose federal food stamp benefits. A recent federal review found fault with our practices, which unfortunately causes our state and our residents to lose millions in federal dollars. This is an important measure at a time when our counties report an increased volume in the number of applications. The bill has no opposition, and I respectfully request your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 52, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 85, AB 2084. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2084 by Assemblymember Brownlee, an act relating to child daycare facilities.
Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 1 in 4 children between the ages of 2 to 5 are considered obese, putting them at risk for health conditions such as type 2, diabetes, and hypertension. The state has established nutrition standards in the K through 12 system, but we really need to start at a much earlier age. This bill establishes a very minimal beverage standards for licensed child care settings that will not result in costs to providers. This bill is consistent with the recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Dietary Guidelines, as well as the Governor's Obesity Initiative promoting water consumption and eliminating sugary drinks in K through 12 schools. Changing habits at a young age now will result in health care savings in the future. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 21. Measure passes. File item 86, pass and retain. File item 87, AB 2133. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2133 by Assemblymember Nilo, an act relating to geologic hazards.
Mr. Nilo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 2133 addresses the governor's signing statement on a bill that was passed last year, SB 113, relating to the seismic retrofit of historic state buildings. The signing statement requested that the University of California sponsor legislation to address some last-minute concerns expressed by the administration. AB 2133 merely narrows the provisions of last year's SB 113 to apply to the California Memorial Stadium, Go Bears, only, and has no fiscal costs neither to UC nor to the state.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 61, no 0. Measure passes. File item 88, AB 2136. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2136 by Assemblymember V. Manuel Perez, and an act relating to disaster relief, making appropriation therefore, and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 2136 is a tax relief bill intended to assist the people of Imperial County in the wake of the Sierra El Mayor earthquake. As some of you already know, the 7.2 earthquake, now referred to as Sierra El Mayor, struck just south of the California-Mexico border on April 4, 2010, with the most serious damage for our state occurring in Imperial County. Both the Governor and the U.S. Small Business Administration have declared a state of emergency for Imperial County, and President Obama also issued a major disaster declaration, triggering the release of federal funds in the areas of public infrastructure to help communities recover from the earthquake. Imperial County now faces a host of repair and recovery issues that the state has estimated will exceed $91 million. People's lives have been disrupted, and our already fragile local economy needs support. AB 2136 supplements a number of existing provisions in state tax law that can be helpful both to local jurisdictions and to individuals after a natural disaster. By allowing special tax treatment for losses sustained as a result of the Sierra El Mayor earthquake, AB 2136 will help to ease some of the burden on Imperial County residents. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Salas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in strong support of this and am a proud co-author of this bill. Having visited the area on numerous occasions, I've seen the damage that has occurred. I visited a hospital, a water treatment facility site, schools, and many, many homes that are damaged. Imperial County is a community that right now is ravaged by 30% unemployment rate. So this bill is extremely necessary to assist the small businesses and families of Imperial County, and I rise to ask your support.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 59, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 59, no 0 on the measure. The measure passes. File item 89 through 90, pass and retain. File item 24, file item 91, file item 91, AB 2485. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2485 by Assemblymember Fuhrer, an act relating to the courts.
Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This is a bill that seeks to have some help to our court crisis. Lawyers from other states, when they sometimes need to practice in California, pay a fee for doing so, as do lawyers from California when they go to other states to practice. This bill is supported by both the defense and the plaintiff's bar, and would increase the fee that out-of-state lawyers pay for the privilege of practicing in California courts. Urge an aye vote.
Mr. Tran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in opposition to this bill. There are a number of issues relating to this bill that we ought to be very concerned about. First of all, this bill is an increase, 100% increase on out-of-state lawyers, which will be passed on to our clients who are residents and citizens of our state. That's one issue. And this bill has been introduced just within a year of the increase from $250 to $500. Now, imagine this. You have out-of-state lawyers who are usually specialists in a certain area in which a client or a resident in the state of California requires that specialty to come in. So basically, the resident of California will be receiving all the pass-off on the cost with this attorney coming in from out of state anyways. So we're getting a double whammy in terms of hitting on the attorney who will pass the cost on to the client. The client is required to hire the specialist from out of state who will be charging the client an additional fee or extra fees on top of everything else. So, and we're not even sure where the increase, the funding, if we're going to pass this, will be going, because it's going to go towards the general fund for the court usage. So once again, I ask for your no vote on this bill.
Mr. Fuhrer, would you like to close?
I would, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much. Just to be clear, typically California residents are represented by California lawyers in California courts. It is, however, the case that California residents are sometimes opposed in litigation by companies or individuals from out of state. Often those entities that California residents oppose do have lawyers from out of state, and as a consequence, those lawyers pay the fee that's on the table before us today. The purpose of this bill is to take a small step among many other steps in finding ways to mitigate the crisis that has pervaded our court system, and I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 22. Measure passes. Members, we've got about 6 more bills on our daily file. File item 92, pass and retain. File item 93, AB 2595. This has support on both sides. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2595 by Assemblymember Huffman, an act relating to irrigated agriculture.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a bill that will improve water quality of agricultural discharges by increasing participation in existing ag water quality programs. Right now, if you're a grower and you discharge into surface waters, you have 2 choices. You can either participate in a conditional ag waiver program, or you can go the more onerous route of getting an individual waste discharge requirement. One of the keys to making the conditional waiver program successful, though, is maximizing participation, and this bill will help with that by creating an important new regulatory incentive. It will require state and regional boards to notify county ag commissioners of growers who are out of compliance, and it will prevent them from getting their pesticide user ID until they come into compliance. As a result of amendments, we have removed all of the opposition except the ag commissioners, and we're continuing to work with them. So with that, I would respectfully request your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 94, pass and retain. We are going to go back to 3 items on the Assembly daily file. First item is file item 25, ACR 110. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent Resolution 110 by Assemblymember Conway relative to Step Up California Month and Step Up California Day.
Ms. Conway.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. ACR 110 is a simple resolution that will designate February 2010 and February 2011 as Step Up California Month, and February 3rd, 2010 and 2011 Step Up California Day. Step Up California is a consortium of nonprofits, faith-based, and business folks that are seeking to end poverty. This is not honoring government for the work they're doing to end poverty in California, simply to honor those from all walks of life that realize the dire straits we're in and want to provide help for that. So I would simply ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, and without objection, we will take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. I'm sorry. The resolution is adopted. File item 62, AB 2033. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2033 by Assemblymember Torres, an act relating to homelessness.
Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Assembly Bill 2033 would require the Department of Housing and Community Development to apply for federal housing to address homelessness in rural counties. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has estimated California could be eligible for $900,000 to pay for housing and services to address homelessness. 13 California counties have not applied directly to HUD for these funds due to limited resources. 30 states have programs that apply for the balance of the state funds, the amount the local communities do not receive directly from HUD. California does not. HCD requested, and HUD is providing technical assistance to the department to determine how best to access these funds. California has the largest homeless population of any county in the nation. The state should capture as much federal funding as possible during these tough fiscal times. This bill passed out of the Housing Committee with bipartisan support. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 60, no 0. Measure passes. File item 82, AB 1964. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1964 by Assemblymember Torres, an act relating to mobile homes.
Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Mobile Home Park Maintenance Inspection Program ensures that all mobile home parks in California periodically receive a full inspection to assess health and safety conditions. Assembly Bill 1964 extends the sunset on this very important program and its related fees through 2018 to ensure that park inspections can continue. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 62, noes 1. Measure passes. Senate third reading. File items 95 through 97 pass and retain. File item 98, SCR 79. Clerk will read.
Senate concurrent resolution 79 by Senator Denham relative to Portuguese Heritage Month.
Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm here to present SCR 79, declaring the month of June as Portuguese Heritage Month. In honor of the many contributions of Portuguese Americans have made to the United States and California, in September of 1542, Portuguese explorer João Rodrigues Cabrillo sailed a ship into San Diego Bay and became the first European explorer to explore the land now known as California. Cabrillo explored the California coast and is credited with numerous coastal discoveries. I am proud to say that in my community we have our Divino Espiritu Santo DES Portuguese Hall in Artesia, and we have it in many different places throughout our state. I'm sure you might have one in your respective district. The main goal of the DES Hall is to promote Portuguese pride and heritage throughout many diverse communities throughout our state. With that, SCR 79 gives us an opportunity to recognize the fact that Portuguese Americans have made valuable and substantial contributions to the everyday life and facet here in the state of California. And Madam Speaker, I would like to add, open up the first roll call for co-authors.
Mr. Mendoza is asking for the first roll to be opened for co-authors. The clerk will open the roll. This is for co-authors, members. This is for co-authors. Clerk will note that there are 66 co-authors. Seeing no further discussion or debate, we can take a roll call, a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. File item 99, pass and retain. File item 100, SB 808. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 808 by Senator Wolk, an act relating to water projects and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Nielsen.
Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, this bill simply extends the sunset for the Delta Levy Subventions Program, provides money for the fixing and rehabilitation of the critical Delta levees. The Delta Stewardship Council shortly will be establishing the newly established Delta Stewardship Council will be establishing priorities for fixing these levees, and the Delta Risk Management Strategy is being worked on now by the Department of Water Resources. This extension will help continuing work on those levees while these priorities are established. I would urge your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 70, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 70, no 0 on the measure. The measure passes. File item 101, pass and retain. Okay, members, we have one item on call. We are going to lift the call now. Clerk will post file item 55, AB 2490. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 27. Measure passes. Mr. Mendoza, for what purpose do you rise?
Madam Speaker, on the SCR 79, I would like to request immediate transmittal to the Senate.
Without objection. Second, business on the daily file, second reading. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1993, 2496, 2500, 2327, and Assembly Bill 2448 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Consent calendars. There is no second-day consent calendar. Schedule for this week. Tuesday, May 25th, check-in session. Wednesday, May 26th, check-in session. Thursday, May 27th, floor session upon call of the Speaker and check-in session. Friday, May 28th, floor session at 9 a.m. This concludes the business on the daily file in the regular session. There are no requests to adjourn in memory. I am ready to enter. Mr. Garrick, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I believe there was a request to adjourn in memory, and if I may have a moment and the attention of the members, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Garrick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I rise in memory of Mavis Clute, one of my constituents and the mother of Congressman Brian Bilbray. She passed away on May 13th at the age of 90 in her home in Carlsbad. Mrs. Clute was a loving wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and friend. She moved to San Diego area after immigrating from Australia after meeting her husband, Chief Warrant Officer Patrick Bilbray, in the United States Navy in Australia. After moving from Australia to the United States in 1943, she gained her citizenship, the first of all the Australian brides who came over on the Lorelei. Widowed in 1968, Mavis remarried in 1972 to Commander George Clute, who served as a Navy aviator in World War II. He passed away in 1999. Mavis Clute owned Bilbray Tax Services in Imperial Beach, acted as the treasurer for the city's Chamber of Commerce, and was active in several political organizations, along with helping her son Brian become a congressman, and prior to that, a city councilman and county supervisor. Mrs. Clute loved America, and as Congressman Brian Bilbray said, she always considered herself an American from Australia, not an Australian American. Mrs. Clute is survived by her sons and their spouses, Bill and Carrie, Robert and Susan, Brian and Karen, and Barry. Also 9 grandchildren and her 2 long-time caregivers and close friends, Lisa Hughes and Shelley Patton. With that, I ask that we adjourn in her memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrick. Please bring Ms. Clute's name forward to the desk. The remaining requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. There is going to be a hearing of the Transportation and UNC committees on electric vehicles at 1:30 in room 4202. That is a hearing on electric vehicles, room 4202 at 1:30 today. And I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Calderon moves. Mr. Smythe seconds. That this House stands adjourned until Thursday, May 27th. Floor session upon call of the Speaker. Quorum call is lifted.